Now will be down on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses.
We can get it over. That's what I'm asking. It's the.
Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from
Me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic, which stands one nation, under God, and liberty for all. Good afternoon. Welcome to this first workshop meeting. So glad everybody's making Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
David. St. Columbia. Dr. Miller. Mr. Harris.
Present.
Mr. Etherly.
Yes.
Ms. Miller.
Yes.
4 present, 2 absent.
With the workshop, we're gonna listen and we're gonna take notes to see, and we're gonna come back and review to make sure we're on the same page. We just want to get some numbers and stuff so we all can have ideas of what's going on in these departments. So once you just take a look at it, and if you have some concerns, you just jot it down so we can come back to have a final review of this. I just want to let y'all know. So the first up to grab. So you want to do the small chief of staff. You want to take the judge first? Code enforcement.
Well, I would think that'd be good. First, he's out of town and he's gonna have a shorter presentation than the police department. Because we're gonna have you go first.
Okay, whatever y'all.
Yeah. You gotta read it fast, right? Yeah, I was gonna pass some of these around. I think I've got enough for everybody. There's enough. I had 10 of them. I think there may be enough. Good evening, council members. My name is Jason Carter. I'm the district court judge. What Mr. Valley's passing out, I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure if the 2023 salaries are 100% accurate. I went by what I got from Mr. Turner back at the end of 2020 or 2022. I'm sorry. I asked. I couldn't remember if y'all passed a cost of living adjustment last year. I was on what I had for salaries at the end of 22. That's what I'm making the 23 salaries on. I'm asking for raises for my department. You can see there, I've got different numbers for everybody. It's not a favoritism thing or a personal thing. I've got some reason. Base $1.50 an hour is what I'm asking across the department. I've got $2 an hour increase. I had additional for last year because she took on additional responsibilities last year, doing the county docket. So she took on additional responsibilities last year. I asked for an additional amount for her last year, so I'm renewing that request. Officer Hall, I'm asking for $2. The extra 50% I'm asking for on that. Court officers have been asked to help out with building security, and so they're taking on additional responsibilities. And so that's why I'm asking for, Officer Parker, $2 is partially for the additional building security. Another $2 is just because his salary is so good right now. He's making minimum wage. He's making $11 an hour, and being asked to put his life on the line for me, the court clerks, everybody else. And I feel like that position deserves at least $15 an hour. So that's why I'm asking for that. Ms. Hansberry, $3 an hour. Somebody else plus an additional $1.50 to kind of put her more in line with for the rest of the city are making. I do want to make a note that for Ms. Hansberry's salary and Ms. Hancock's salary, at least in theory, the county is supposed to be reimbursing half of Ms. Hancock, or half of Ms. Hansberry's salary and a third of Ms. Hancock's salary. I don't know whether that's been happening or not, but that is something that there is a contract on that. And these salaries fall within a range that contract contemplated. Ms. Hansberry's salary, that range is up to $50,000. Ms. Hancock's salary, that range is up to $40,000, which I will still have to go to forum court to get them to approve their part of the raise. But since it's within those salary ranges, I don't think I'll have a problem with that. But like I say, part of that should be reimbursed by the county. As far as that goes, that's pretty much it. That's the main thing that I'm asking for. There is something that I wanted to kind of put a bug in the ear of all the council members. An idea that I've talked to the mayor about, we've talked to the chief of staff about last year. I didn't really think it was a good time to ask last year for this position. And I'm not necessarily asking for it now. I just want y'all to think about it, but it's a position for a probation officer. We don't have a probation officer right now. I would like to have some supervision for some of the people that I'm putting on probation. One of the additional duties that this probation officer would do would be able to help with fine collection, and they would be able to organize and supervise community service. I would like to give people the opportunity, if they're not working, to be able to work, whether it's through the city or churches in the community or anything like that. I don't care how they're doing it, as long as they're doing some type of community service. I would like to give people the opportunity to help out the community and get their fines lower. With the number of people that we have that come in that are not able to pay their fines and that are not working, that's really the only opportunity we have to try to get something for the city. Because if they're not working, they don't have any money, we don't put people in jail for that. There's really no other recourse other than to ask them to do community service. And right now, we don't have a program really in place to supervise that and keep up with it. The few people that I have put on probation and or asked to do community service in the past, we've had trouble keeping up with what they've done. And so we need somebody to supervise that, to coordinate it, keep all those records. And I feel like if we have that position and you have that tool to where people can either do community service or they can pay their fines, some of the ones that can pay their fines are going to find some money because they don't want to do community service. And so I think that that person's salary could be helped paid for by, some of those fines that I feel like will increase when we've got somebody supervising all that. Like I say, it's not something that I'm asking for immediately. It's just something I kind of wanted the council to think about. I do think that somebody like that, you would need a good person, responsible person in that position. I don't think minimum wage would be, you're going to get anybody for that for minimum wage. I think at least $15 an hour is what I would ask for a position like that, if we were able to do something. But that's really about all I've got. If y'all have any questions or anything. Yes, sir.
The judge and I did talk about a probation officer. It really would help. I was in court today, and a lot of the people that the judge was fined and really they just go to the bailiff just took them to the window, and we could use that. We used to have they could work on the Saturday truck, they could work at the police department. We can get some good usage out of those folks for fines, and it takes a load off, trying to hire people. If you can come and do 40 hours worth of community service, whether that's cutting around City Hall, washing the cars, or doing something, we gotta get the city needs to be clean. We need to find ways to, we can ask our employees to do a lot. And if you owe us some money, we'd like to get it one way or other. I'd like to see you pay us, but if you can't pay us, I sure like to see you work it off. We have to start looking at getting our community clean. So, I would kind of like to see a probation officer that would even help the police department out as well. You know, that's one of the things me and the judge talked about earlier last year. So I would hope you all take that into consideration.
Anything else, council members? Well, I appreciate y'all. And if I need to be back for another meeting sometime, y'all just let me know when to be here.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
You there? How you doing?
Doing all right, y'all doing this afternoon. I will go on record tonight in saying that I will support the judge's efforts to get a probation officer for the courts. Earlier, I came by and I delivered a package to each of you. The first page of the package give you a depiction of 2022 to 2023 crime report. I gave you a police package. Yes. People are facing them. So on our crime report, our officers did very well. I would note that on our homicides, we had a 16% decrease. In most of our major crimes, we had decreases in those. I thought my statistician would have those percentages on there, but they're not. But we do have the numbers that were reported for each of those years. You look closer. And that's rather self-explanatory on that. I just wanted to get that for informational purposes. So as you look at that, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer those. But not to prolong time tonight, the police budget. In my budget, that is presented, proposed to you all tonight, I'm asking for increases in salaries again. City treasurer, I did talk a little bit. Wish I had more time for he and I to sit down and talk a little bit more. And the days coming after this meeting, he and I are going to sit down and put our numbers together and maybe come up with a more definitive number to present to you all. My number was a little bit higher. My budget line item, bottom line is 1,538,944. And you all have a copy of that in your package. And I think it's pretty reasonable for the services that we render to the community. Last year, we began 2023 with a $400,000, I would call it a deficit from 2022. 2022, it was 400,000 in overtime. This year, we have decreased that by about almost 200,000. So our officers are buying into what we are telling them by holding 200. It's a decrease. Drop. The overtime drop, decreased by 200,000. Yes. What? By 200,000. 200,000. Yes. Close to 200, about 145,000. About 180,000 city treasurer, but probably more closer to the number, about 180,000. 2023. It's not on the package.
It's in 2023, for police officers of 230, little over. What it was, right?
What time are you projecting for this year?
If I wanted to project, I will keep that same number depending on how you all, depending on what budget you all give us to hire new officers. So we're asking to hire new officers to fulfill those vacancies that we have. If we're able to fill those vacancies, I believe that the overtime we asked it to go down from the 238,000. We were at 400,000. So now we're down by 238,000.
So by having officers, you feel like you have that vote?
We need more than two. We need about 10 more. About 13 more, actually, about 13 more officers.
13 more.
Yes. We worked 2023 with about 9 officers the entire year. And those officers are fatigued, they're tired, their bodies are worn out. You know, a truck driver, when we drive a truck, it's mandated by law that they park their truck, sit down and get some rest. Our officers don't have the luxury of doing with. Airplane pilot, once they fly a certain number of hours, they gotta take a rest, take a break. And so our officers are the same ability to work and to be ready to go to work. They need to be physically able and mentally able. And right now, as I said before, I think that it's a definite ability for the city to work the way that we are working. All you work all day. You go home, you have one day you probably fatigue, one day you get some rest. We don't have that luxury. You work 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week. They go home one day, they're trying to take care of personal business, catch up on what little they can. Matter of fact, over the holidays, they probably didn't get fed. We had to work them in an effort to keep this, the crime down over the holidays. Christmas holidays, a fantastic job this year. Had nothing major to go on. New Year's holiday, nothing major, because our guys put leg work in, they had boots on the ground, and they were working. So we're just asking for some relief, and it's not budget. Hire new officers to make the city function, or the police department function as a professional police department should. So as you all look at the budget, do anyone have any questions? I'll go. So
You had, last year you had $329,675 in overtime for the office.
Okay.
So you reduced it by, close to 100,000, you reduced it by 98,000.
okay,
In 2022, they had a police officer overtime of $329,675.12. In 2023, it was $231,282.28.
2023.
Yes, sir. So he's reduced close to 100,000, a little bit over 98,000.
I think that's admirable.
Yeah.
And I think in saving, I think we ought to consider the effort that we put forth and to bless us with an increase. I was thinking as you all were thinking, my thoughts were, we work these guys over the holidays, full staff, 8, 9 officers on the street. We had control of the city, we had control of the crime. Yeah, there would be crime, but the major crime, we were in the neighborhoods, we were in the areas, there was considered high crime areas. We maintained a degree of decorum, professionalism. We performed. I was very, very proud about guys. So on a daily basis, just think if we were fully staffed, I think you all would probably be able to rest just a little bit easier.
I want to ask you, Chief, with the chief is always been in collaboration with the cops. make sure our officers have good writing skills. A lot, the chief has brought a lot to the office, trying to make sure that, you know, these at the college, getting, basic writing skills, report writing skills. So things are changing. You know, as the chief is new with, as I am in administration, but he has brought some good skills back home. And when you look at when he's, the overtime that they were getting, look at how safe the community is. Imagine if you get those guys a chance to get a break and get some new guys in here to get trained. You know, public safety is one of those things we really need. You know, I'm looking at what he's proposing and how he, you know, $98,000 may not be a lot to some folks. It's a lot. That's it's good for four people. You know, that you could add. It's savings, and if you imagine how if overtime would go down, if you were fully staffed, have folks come working 12 hours or 8-hour shift.
I would also add that a part of the salaries, I think, was still eligible, that's being funded by the cops grant.
Yeah, I need to look into seeing when that expires and trying to see if we can draw down some money for because it hadn't been done in it this year. So I got file back from the auditor, so I'm going to look into that to see if there's money that we can still draw down from that particular.
So how much do we normally draw that?
Have to look at about $20,000 or $25,000.
Is that too much?
Yeah,
We need to be drawing down every 3 months.
but it had an expiration date, so I need to look into it.
So Chief, do you all know, would that grant still be available after this is over?
It had a 3-year period, so it may expire next year, but I need to look at
So who's in charge of drawing the money then?
the former chief of staff.
We shall have to cover that.
That's a grant that really, it's always available. I'm not sure we can look and tap into it while we're already online. I think it's a possibility that we can still add to that. I'm not 100%, I think we can, but I'm not for sure. I do the well.
Yeah, I'll look into it.
And lastly, in the package, I'm asking for 3 vehicles. They are used vehicles. They are the Chevy Tahoe 2021 models. They range from $39,995 or from $37,795 to $39,995. And 2 of them have less than 50,000 miles. One have a little over 50,000 miles. I think these will work for the administrative purposes that we need them for. Our detectives need a vehicle, and I've been driving my personal vehicle for a little while now, so I'm in need of a vehicle. In our detective division, I'm looking at, in addition with what we already have, I'm looking for an officer to work cold cases. We have a few cold cases. We have a couple of families that are very, very concerned that we're not putting in the effort to solve those crimes. I feel that pain. I understand what they're saying, and I want to give them what they're looking for, closure, and their loved ones death. We got the staff. We've got to move them around. So when I'm moving or reassigning them, he's going to need a vehicle to drive. We got 10, 12.
We have 9 on.
We have 9 officers.
And quick question,
These cars that we're talking about, they are patrol cars, they are MARG units. Normally, detective car, the unmarked, but we don't have enough unmarked units, to drive. And once we are fully staffed, those 10 will be consumed, well, not consumed, but be in use, immediately, so.
At one time, we had, wasn't it some Hummers or some cars, like trucks like that? Where are they right now?
They have been returned. Those are military grade vehicles. They wasn't for street use at all.
Okay, so they've been returned.
Yes.
Mr. Turner, explain to me, under salaries, you have, and I'm sure there's I just don't know what it is, where you have holiday pay, then holiday pay, police NF overtime, police NF, part-time police officer, salaries police, and then salaries, police NF. What does that NF stand for?
NF is for, when they set up the accounting system, they use NF for non-FICA. Your police officers don't pay, I believe it's Social Security. So we don't take Social Security out of their check because they're on lottery. Their retirement plan is different than APRS, the citizen, this is for uniform, all police officers and fire. So they have a different insurance. So the firemen don't pay Social Security or Medicare. The police officers only pay Medicare. And so that was a way of designating, distinguishing the police officers from the dispatchers and record, the records clerks. It's a different way of taxing. So when we see NF, those are the police officers.
Those were actual police officers.
And the same for the overtime. When you see NF, those are officers.
Yes.
Depends on which budget you're looking at.
Yes.
I gave them a budget for police officers only, so that would be paid one on that.
Right. Thank you. The one that's dated 1/9/24. Okay, and so Mr. Turner, under salaries where you have the overtime, and this is the same page. So we had budgeted 100,000 for overtime and 231 was spent.
Yes, in the past, the city council has wanted to initially budget 100,000, and when they get close to that point, they wanted them to come back in and explain why it was what it was, and make a request for additional overtime. So the past few years, we've just automatically put that 100,000. But if you guys, when we have further discussion, if you want to move it up to the 232 that the chief suggested, that's okay. But that's the reason why it's 100. We initially just put 100 in there for the police and fire. So when they came close to that, they would have to come to the city.
So help me with, okay. So you explained to us once before that you could have a budget, or the budget allows for, or it's written in the budget that we have this much appropriated. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we have that much in the coffers.
Yes. The appropriation is just an authorization that the city council gives to the mayor. To make the things up to a certain. So when you see an amount of budget like $100,000 for overtime, that's just your authorization for the mayor to pay up to $200,000 in overtime. He may decide that he doesn't want to pay $100,000. He may decide I'm not going to give $100,000 in overtime. But the appropriation is just your authorization to him to go up to. And so when they get close to that, they need to come get another authorization from you, additional appropriations to go over that. So what you see in the budget is just authorization from you to let the mayor purchase or contract or whatever he needs to do for the amount that's in the budget. That's just your authorization. You can authorize him to buy a helicopter. He can say, I don't want to purchase it. You know, so that's just an authorization. That doesn't mean we have that in the bank. Because the bank, the money that we get from taxes and sales taxes and property taxes, those come in monthly. Some of the franchise fees come in quarterly. So we don't have the $8 million that you see in revenue projections. We don't start off with that $8 million. It just comes monthly throughout the year. So another issue, one of the big issues with the police staff is that we budget for maximum staffing, like a full roster of officers. That's what the budget is. He only has 9 officers now. I think the budget is 25 officers. And so payroll wise, it doesn't hurt. Right now, we're still coming to these points where we may not pay payroll early. We may just Friday payroll day. But we're able to make payroll now, but when we increase that hourly rate or the salaries, then that's going to increase the amount of cash that you need every 2 weeks. And so that's where the problem comes. The problem doesn't necessarily come from making a budget that amount and authorizing the chief to go out and get 25 officers. That's not the problem. The problem is when it's time to pay him every 2 weeks. I did I think I put in your packet an analysis of one payroll period that they had. I think it was in October maybe, and I did it for the people that were on staff at that particular time. And I took that one payroll, that current payroll, and I took those hours that they got, that one payroll, and I changed the hourly rate and the salary rate to what he was requesting for the same hours and the same holiday pay and whatever, vacation, whatever. And so that came out to be, just for those people that were currently on staff, that difference came out to be about $19,000. And that was just for one pay period. If you did that 26 times, I think it came out to be like $500,000 in additional payroll. So it does make a difference in payroll. That's where the problem comes in. And you have to actually write those checks and take out the cash.
So how many detectives do we have on staff?
3. That's 3. We're not adding to the roster. We are using what we have. And that particular officer, we're gonna be performing dual roles, maybe quadruple roles, but his main function is going to be working cold cases. And perhaps some patrol and some other duties as well. So he's not going to be confined to one specific position. But it's not in addition, it's going to be from the staff we already have.
I say this, I was talking to the chair. Now, we got 9 officers and we budget like how many? 25? So we don't get to 25.
But 11 right now,
11. So we don't get to 25. When I wrote to the company, we had this thing. We need a number of police that we can have to make sure that we can make sure the community is safe. But when you look at payroll, when you look at some of these salaries, that's 70, one officer at $90,000. We saying, that's, some folks make way more than anybody some of your high paid people is the police department. Because they're not getting arrested. If you tell them they can go get it, they're going to get it. They're working to 16, 17 hours.
No solution.
Wait. Cause I want folks to get it. We ain't got but 11 officers. 9 full-time officers, 3 or 8 or whatever, officers, detective. And when you look at paying some folks 70, the lowest officers, how much again? How much the lowest paid officer get? 56. Oh, yeah, their salary is 50, no, and the 50 and the 60. When you look when you look at the overtime rate, it's almost the lowest one is 70 grand with overtime. Yes, ma'am. And you know, at some point, if Mr. Edwards always say, you know, what can we attract? What can we get? Yeah, we are. I mean, you know, when you look at income, that's a lot of money. But come down here when they pick up their check or sign some checks, you know, when you see what you're really paying, you got officers working 12 hours, 13, whatever they can work, whatever the chief authorized them to work. If you tell them they can stay and work all night, some of them will try because they're hungry for the paycheck. But imagine the risk that we're in if they get out here and have an accident. We're liable. At some point, we got to start saying this. You got to be like Liberty Mutual. Pay for what you need. Right, it is.
I've got a suggestion, to the mayor and the council. If you all pass, whenever the time comes to pass the budget, I want to propose that in passing the budget, has proposal, and for the police officers, we will not implement those raises until we are fully staffed. So now the support staff and the dispatchers, I would ask that we go ahead and pass that. So we won't worry about the overtime because there still will be overtime until we are able to hire those officers. 5 months ago, I had about 4 officers ready to go if we were to pass the budget back then, but we didn't. So if we pass the budget, not implement the police side of it until we get to 20, at least 20, or we can have at least 3 shifts. And then we can preserve the overtime issue that we have or concerned about. That makes sense? We can say more if we want to.
Well, okay, so we budgeted, say, 100,000. In 22, you had 329, which is 220 something more. 23, you had 131, which is 130 something more. So are we going to have a method? Is there a plan that would cap the amount of overtime? Say, for instance, we are able to attract some new officers. I mean, I don't know that we could handle it, unfortunately. Both, you know, getting new officers, getting them on payroll, and having all of this extra overtime.
Right.
So is there a plan?
Yes, the plan is we'll hold up, pause the advancement for the police officer until we reach a satisfactory number and we can have 3 shifts that will patrol this community. And once we reach that status, then we implement the raises for the officers. That way, if you do it now, we're still on 12-hour shifts. Overtime is gonna go through the roof. So I get that. That's why I propose to hold up on them until we get the number of officers that we need. Well, we won't have to worry about the overtime. There probably will be some, but not as much as it would be if we didn't do that. Am I losing y'all? I think it makes sense. We get the officers, then we implement But I would also, not to break the bank. Once we get to that status, then we go back and retroactively pay the same money. Moment, baby. Same money.
Budget workshop. I think we don't, your revenue, is it gonna go up every month, or is it gonna continue to drop? You're looking at increases in water and sewer rates, because maybe help them out over there. But, you still have other ongoing expenses, and it may be a hard decision for you to decide what you want to fund, what you want to cut, what services maybe you have to curtail, because, all of you realize, we may not get any more revenue next year by this reason we got last year. And your sales tax, you might not go like that. And if you look at the net payroll, that we're running right now, which is Congress on it, Robert and Peter to say, Paul, it's gonna be a hard decision, you know, and I don't envy your position, so you kind of decide what you're gonna do. What is the most essential thing that you need? It's not hard, it's difficult for the mayor to, you know, to decide.
Can I counter that? If I can, and certainly no disrespect, but we're spending the money already. It's obvious we're spending $238,000 over the budgeted salaries. So I'm not knocking any other department or division, street and sanitation or whoever. Police department, I'm getting ready to lose these officers. The bottom is gonna fall out. You're not gonna have anybody.
Well, I don't disagree with their essential either, so but what I'm saying is, when we have large payrolls like that, there are bills for essential things like the fuel.
You haven't missed the pay,
All that doesn't matter.
you haven't missed the payroll yet. In the police department, you're still spending $238,000 in excess of what you already budgeted. So I'm not a mathematician or anything like that, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist, ladies and gentlemen, to know that if you pass the budget, we meet the number of officers that we need. My projection, overtime will go down. And we're still less than that 238,000, I believe, that we're spending already. We're close to it. We're not really going over it by a whole lot. So we're spending the money already. But we're working our guys, our police officers, we're working them in the ground.
And when you're working in,
But with what you're spending, is what I'm trying to say, is the money's not there, but we have to come up with somewhere to make payroll. I mean, your officers are, they work a long hours, they do a great job, but it's just a matter that's gonna be on the back of the county. Where you gonna get the revenue to fund your other things that you're gonna have to look at.
Where we got it from last year? Where we get it from last year?
I'm confused, you know.
It was 41. 41.
And we had the same problem last year that we had every year. Apparently, we couldn't fill it. So the people in the department got the overtime because nobody wanted the job. Okay, so I had this great big fear. And we increased everybody's pay, but we still don't fill the spot. And now we pay even more to the same 8 or 9 people instead of, and then we got some people who made more than they were slotted to make. And most of the other people made.
I need.
A whole lot more than they were slotted to make. Are those people really, I know everybody wants a pay raise, but I really want, I mean, if they want a pay raise, they're not going to pay that. So do they, why they really want to just go home and not make that kind of money? My experience is that those people who made $70,000 still don't make $70,000. They don't don't really want, because I mean, you gotta have a drive to work that hard. Now, I applaud most of them, because they're the same people that I've seen before all the time. I'm saying, I don't think they really want to take break them. And so, you kind of got this catch-22. I have a time, she don't. So, you really have this catch-22, where we have some people who, I don't think they really want to take a pay cut. I'm sure they would love to see more officers on staff. But I guess when we look at payroll, first of all, we don't have, I think from the projections that we got in the new budget, I think his revenue projection is less than what it was last year. So if his revenue projection is less than last year, and the request is to spend what we spent, well, actually, you gotta cut somewhere from last year to meet the revenue projection. Chief, every time I had this discussion, which I remind you, I had this idea some years ago, to take the unused money. But my calculator won't make it work. Now, let me throw this in, because this is gonna be a left turn. But I think we gotta put it in the discussion as we talk about police. Jail fees. And when they arrest people on the felony charges and they take them to jail, we have to pay these fees, and the county says, well, you're not giving us enough money for these people. And the city is on the hook until they formally get charged. And so I hear you saying you need, if you talked about detectives and CID, what I wanted to address, I know I'm mixing more than one thing, and I don't want to confuse everybody. But I want to, since I'm talking already, I want to put it out there for you. Is there a way, because it's taken, I guess in the files that I see, it's taken anywhere from 30 to 45 days, and they have 60 days to get the charges filed. It's not just the city's responsibility, because they'll take those files and send them to the prosecutor's office, and then they wait on the prosecutor's office to get them filed. But because it's costing us money to have people in jail. My thought process was if we had more detectives, we could get files completed more and get them ready and processed more faster to get them to the prosecutor's office so that they could, if they could perhaps try to file them faster. So that we relieve our jail fee cost. And a lot of people don't know, some people do know, our jail is about to fill up because effective January 1st, people can't finance bonds anymore. And so you might have a person that's got $100,000 bond. People wonder how they got out, or $300,000 or $400,000 bond. People wonder how they got out. And the bail bondsman used to be able to finance that 10% payment. In other words, you can give them a little bit of money and then you can make payments on it and they get them out. But as of January 1st, they can't do that anymore. So a person who has let's say a $30,000 bond can no longer pay a little bit of money. They got to pay the full 10%. And most people around here don't have money, but the judge was talking about when he came in earlier. So a lot of people who used to be able to get out of jail won't be able to get out anymore. And that sounds great to people when we talk about crime, but it costs us money. It's gonna cost us a whole lot more money. And so if we can get them processed and charged faster. And so you talked about cold cases, but my thought process has been when you came was to talk about how can we get files over to the prosecutor's office and maybe try to push them to file cases faster. They may not want to file them that fast, but we got to get them out of our hands as quickly as possible. Because we keep the jail fees are about to be even greater of a burden than they used to be. So I threw two things at you at once.
You said a whole lot.
Yeah.
But on the front end, as I said earlier, if the budget is passed as presented or once the city treasurer not sit down and really crunch these numbers, we will not implement the police salaries on the front end so that the overtime will not be effectively going up. Hopefully it'll stay right where it's at, the 12-hour shift, 6 days a week. As we hire new officers, we'll be able to get back to a regular rotational shift. 3 shifts, 8-hour days, 2 days a week off. The next thing I think you talked about was I guess the overtime, or
Let me restate that question for you. If we couldn't attract people, how are we gonna attract new officers to alleviate the overtime? Because we have open slots. I mean, you made a request for permission to hire additional officers, but we had open slots, so it was already there.
we couldn't hire those, well, we had difficulty hiring those officers at the salary, the starting salaries that we are currently at. That's the issue. I mean, we ask officers that are employed by other agencies or just recruiting on on the street. When you start a salary. We can't work for that. We're not coming for that. The crime, the culture of crime is different than it was even 2 years ago. These individuals watch television, they see a lot of crime that's taking place all across this country. So they're asking themselves, am I gonna put my life on the line for $22,600 a year? The answer is no, they're not coming. We just had one young man to come, he worked in Lake Region for several years. He came primarily because there's nothing else. This is his profession. So the salary, the starting salary right now is the issue as to why we cannot recruit and hire people.
So let me ask you a different question. Based on your response. What's the most favorable recruiting ground for officers? Is it new officers or is it officers from existing agencies?
The most further would be from a new agency, from another agency. They'd be the most experienced, so I'll put them in that category, but we're looking for good, solid individuals who have an interest in law enforcement, who want to be in law enforcement, not just anybody that's in a job. You want somebody that's career oriented, someone that's law enforcement oriented, that really wants to be in this profession. To me, anybody just can't do this job. They might get hired, but they can't really be police officers the way that I think they should. And back to your other question, as a police chief, I'm concerned about these officers. I'm concerned about their safety. I'm concerned about your safety. As you drive, they're driving, you got to face these officers, you got to come side by side with them. You don't know the condition of them mentally or physically. You don't know if they're gonna fall asleep and run over you. Well, thank God they haven't already. So as a police chief, I have a responsibility to come right here, to fight for these guys, with it I am, to put on the table, to let you know what we're dealing with on a daily basis. Now, it may not mean nothing to you all because you don't walk in these shoes. You don't work 12-hour shifts. You don't work 6 days a week. You don't deal with the issues that we deal with. We deal with our own personal issues, and then we deal with everybody else's issues. All this stuff is laid upon us because this is what we do. This is what we accepted to do. Nobody's running from it. But if we keep the salary where it's at now, these guys are gonna bail out. They got the experience. They can go elsewhere and make a lot more money. Why not keep these guys at home that we're training, that we've gotten to know? You all know them personally, probably on a first name basis. They know all of you all. They enjoy working for this city. So as a police chief, yes, I'm concerned, very deeply concerned. When I come to work, after my phone is ring all night, I still got to get up and come face another day. We don't always feel like it, but we do. These guys get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, after 12-hour shift, get off at 4 in the afternoon. Those who have children, just imagine they're trying to spend time with their family. So they're probably getting about 3 to 4 hours sleep, if that, and back up the next day to deal with another day's work. Deal with a lot of, sometimes it's nonsense, but we gotta go anyway. These guys are constantly going. There's no break some days. Rain, sleet, or shine, we're rolling. Day in, day out, we're rolling. We deserve everything we're asking for. Not all the rhetoric that we constantly hear. I didn't really want to be, being negative, sound negative, but we deserve this answer more.
I've got one quick question. Okay, you're gonna raise the entry level salary for police officers and bring in new fellas. Okay. Are you, and you say then you could hold off giving the raises. Are the new people gonna come in at the old rate with the promise of when we get fully staffed like you need, then everybody moves up?
No, the new people will come in at the new rate.
Okay, and
Yeah.
the old people would stay at the old rate
Yes.
till we get fully staffed.
Yes.
Okay, I just, thank you, I just couldn't.
And I will come back to you all with the report. If it's 20 officers that we can do what we need to do with 3 shifts and relieve these guys of the stress that they're under, I can come back and report that to you all. And then we can implement the other side of if you all pass it, the other side of the salary increase that we're asking for.
If I may. First of all, I'm just asking questions. It's not rhetoric. These are numbers, right? Hard enough. One way or another. So it's not rhetoric. And I'm just asking questions. And I'm asking questions because I'm hearing two different things. I don't know if you realize. I don't know if everybody else is hearing. I'm hearing two things. I'm hearing the officers are tired and they need a break. I'm hearing the officers are going to leave because they go somewhere else and makes no money. When I look at the numbers and I see an officer making $70,000 or $80,000, yeah, I'm saying, no, they ain't gonna make more money. But they're gonna have that opportunity if they go somewhere else. Well, if they go to a fully staffed department, they're gonna go home. They're gonna get the rest. They ain't gonna get the money. So the issue becomes, do they really want the rest or do they really want the money? And if they want the money, then it's a numbers problem. Because no matter how many people we bring in, they really will make less money and they'll want to go somewhere to pay them what they can make, whatever. If they want the rest, then I ask the question, what's the most fertile ground for recruiting? Because if we can recruit more people off the street and pay them a high entry level salary, then let's divert those funds to entry level. If this with a different department, just to recruit people from different departments, and let's raise just general pay for officers. Because that will get those people some rest, but it's gonna make them less money. So when you say they're gonna leave because they don't make enough money, I'm confused about whether they want rest or not.
They want both, Mr. Etherly. And to answer your question, it's real simple. These guys, when I speak to them, yeah, they like the overtime. But they like their downtime as well. They work because we asked them to work. So if we go to a fully staffed department, they're gonna stay with the increase that you give them. No, they're not gonna make what they're making now. And I guess you're trying to make it seem like it's maybe somewhat ludicrous that they might take the decrease. They're not taking a decrease because the overtime is not a part of their salary. They know what their base salaries are. Yes, they're making it now because we are allowing them to make it. But once we get fully staffed, they understand where their position and their salary, what salaries will be. It's not $1 million question.
Well, no, again, I wasn't using rhetoric, and I'm not, I don't think what I'm saying is ludicrous. I'm just trying to understand, because I'm just going off what you said.
Okay.
And those things, to me, were in conflict. That the same people who, and so I'm asking, you really know. Because some of them may, I think you said it radically. Because what I'm trying to get to is if we might have a little bit of money that we can increase. We might not be able to get to your request, but we might have some of it, right? And we start doing these numbers. And then it becomes strategically, where do you place those funds? What'll have the biggest impact? And so I'm just trying to process and understand.
I haven't seen the calendar, but you could really go out and poll them for yourself. That's the problem. I guess you can do that. They work 24 hours a day. You can talk to either one of them and get their feelings for your own self. So they may tell you something different than they tell me. But talk to them for yourself. These are your officers as well.
I mean, I know them. I just asked them, but I wanted to get your take as chief. How do you feel about it? What I try not to do what I tried to do for all the years I've been here, is I try not to go and talk to people on. Figure out what's going on in the department. I try to let it filter from the top and stay in my lane.
Well, I'm saying as a chief, I'm saying as a chief, I guess, for one more time, I guess, I'm really concerned whether they want this money or not. I'm concerned, right now, that's my position. I told you what theirs was to me, from them to me. But my position is this, I'm more concerned about their safety, their welfare, than this overtime they're getting.
And that's what I was trying to, that's what.
Okay, yeah, that's,
We would rather.
Yeah.
We have limited funds, we would rather have a all.
yes, yes, exactly, exactly, that's right.
I hope I didn't confuse you.
I was just thinking about, salary wise. People, yeah, they want to work for the money, they want to rest too, but if you giving me a comfortable salary, well, I can get some rest, a decent amount of money, you got my attention. You know, if you paying me $50,000, you gonna let me get 2 days off, thank you. Yeah, they do, but.
We said they got.
But if they're getting a comfortable salary, let's look at, you go right down to Marvel. Marvel pay more than we pay. Over at Mariana, they pay more than what we pay. It's like, you know, some of our homegrown officers out there in Mariana, Forest City. You know, I want to see folks come back home. And not only come back home, but you know, that people that don't live here, that live in Marvin, that's a light bill, that's a water bill, that's a gas bill, that's a phone bill, that's gas. When people move away, I hate my son moved away. And my grandma said like to kill me to see him leave, because that's a light bill, he paid his own rent, water, cable. That's revenue we losing. We can project. And they say the budget is a projection. We projecting folks to move back home. I know the HUD office, they got 150 vouchers. They cannot fill. If I had some rent houses, I think that'd be 150 light bill, 150 water bill added to the community. You know, that's more money for everybody. You know, we gotta, you know, track good officers, track good people to come back. And one thing that this administration is doing is cleaning it up so they can come back home. Not only doing Bluesville, but all year long we've been cleaning up because we want folks to move back home. Y'all know some folks, we know somebody couch tell we got some houses, some private houses, some houses vacant, they can come move to. Chief said.
It's 7 o'clock. And, of course, we had the police and district court to go. I guess I was gonna do code enforcement. But one of the things that some of y'all's questions have led me to think we need to do is probably start from the beginning and let the treasurer tell you all how he put this budget together. So you kind of got some understanding of revenue versus the expenses and what to expect in the process. So somewhere in this process, I believe the question is going to be asked, how do you want to fund the budget? Whether that's going to be by cutting staff or by raising rates. But you got to come on to a vote to make the numbers fully match or fully mesh, because your water department is continuing to use sanitation fees. Sanitation fees may not even be adequate themselves. You know, all of those things have to be considered as you go through the budget process. And that's part of the reason you have these budget workshops, so you can get it delivered to you in a way that you can make an informed decision. So I believe the treasurer can do something pretty quickly to go through that part of the budget. One of the things that was added to your desk tonight is the job descriptions. They're still somewhat draft. They were used previously, but the number, it's got a page number beside it, and that refers to the bottom of the page. It was in a different council meeting packet. And so I know that several of you have asked for those. And I'm hoping that's put together in a sensible way that it may not be every position, but it's certainly, quite a few, but it was in a September packet. So, Mr. Treasurer, if you could go through how you derive what our revenues are expected to be, and if you're expecting them to be more or less than they were in 2023, and what areas we might be soft on in terms of expected revenue.
I'm not sure if they're higher or lower. I may have something in here that I may have done something to show me what it was in 22. I believe that now that I'm looking at it now, it's going to be a little bit lower, a couple $100,000, $248,000. I think that's yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's just the revenue from, that's not counting I'm looking at, I also count the transfer that we get from the landfill, debt service. One of the things with that is that, and that's a lot of problem that the city's having also, is that their 2-cent sales tax, some of that goes to pay the landfill bond that we have. We have a payment every year. I was trying to look at it and see what it was last year. It was it was about 700,000, but like since I'm in here, I don't know how the Wi-Fi is working, but I can get back to you on that. One of the things is that we pay this bond 750,000. It just depends on which tranche we're in. That's $700,000 that doesn't come to the general fund, it goes to pay off this landfill bond. So that's money that we can't do. There's a lot of things we probably could be doing. We could probably give some salary increases, but that's just one of the things that's hampering us now. That's not going to end until 2034. But the other thing that I do, and that's just an aside, what I do is I use regression analysis. I look at the revenue that we've received for the past 10 years in different categories, whether it's sales tax, franchise fees, sanitation fees, fines and bonds and fines, and property tax. And so I have this regression analysis worksheet that I use. And so it kind of gives me an estimate if it's going to increase 3%, if it's been trending, a loss or a decrease. I mean, a loss or an increase. And so I use that. And then I also kind of use my judgment to say, okay, does whatever this is telling me, does this appear to be reasonable? And I try my best to be conservative. I don't get out of the way in a way. I don't try to, if I try to be conservative, I try to use the number that's more likely, and I try not to get too over your skis or whatever. If it looks like it's going to be 3 million, I don't try to get out there and say, well, maybe we can make 3.5 million. I try to stick close to whatever my worksheet is telling. And so that's how I come up with the revenue. As far as the expenditures are concerned, in this particular budget, I just use the current salaries that everybody's making right now, and that's what I put in there for the salaries. And I pretty much do the same thing with the expenditures. I kind of look at them through September, October, and try to project how they will look for the rest of the year. And so I'm looking at past history on expenditures when I'm budgeting like that as well. The things like the car notes, the police cars, and the sanitation trucks and the fire trucks, I know what those are going to be. I know what they're going to be monthly. And so it's easier to do those because I know a lot of those are automatic drafts. So it's easy to project our debt service because I know what the monthly debt is going to be. But it's kind of difficult to do the expenditures. So I can only look at what we paid in the past and try to get those close. The last few years, my revenues that have been projected have been pretty, spot on. I'm not off any more than a couple of percentage points most of the time. So I feel comfortable with the revenue projections. But then in some instances where I'm doing the expenditures and the budget has to balance, so I have to get at least the same amount of revenue as I do with expenditures. So a lot of times if I'm kind of like over, my budget is over, my expenditures are over revenue, I kind of go in and look at some stuff that we budget for a lot of times, like every year, but that we don't really use a lot. And so I may cut that just to get us under budget most of the time. But my revenue projections are pretty much some regression analysis that I use over, I think, for the most part, most of them are based on 10-year history of the revenues in each particular revenue line item. I think I have at least 10 years for each revenue line item. And so I look at trend analysis to try to determine what I project the revenue. And expenditures are pretty much historical stuff that we went over last year, previous year.
All right. Mr. Turner, we could get the council to look at page 2. It's probably your first page of your revenue and expenditures.
Yeah.
One of the questions that's jumping out at me is a section called sales tax revenue.
Yeah.
The county jail tax is roughly almost $700,000 above the harbor tax, right?
Yeah.
And that harbor tax is really misnamed now because the harbor is no longer in there.
Yeah.
That's the new jail tax.
Yes.
Right, and that difference in those two that we're receiving is going to the county.
Yes, the harbor tax was always slightly less because we had to send money to
The harbor.
the harbor, and then we had that 5% that went to the other municipalities in the county. But they were, I think one of them, it was like 95% of what the other one. And so the new jail tax is what's reducing that even further.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but that's 563 plus $156,000 difference.
Yeah. Mm.
And so it's easily over $500,000 less we get because we're funding the jail with that money.
Yes.
All right. You also list property tax. I'm going up 452. That's just actual receipts.
Yeah.
All right. And the
I
state
still do some analysis on that. I can't still look at the trend, but those don't change by much. It's like they tend to be 85% the same because you can take your car with you, but most of the time the houses and the businesses, they aren't going anywhere. So they remain pretty constant.
Right, but has the county fully caught up with us based on the problem the county had with their treasurer not paying?
They have given us, she's told me that this was,
She being the current treasurer.
yes, the current treasurer has told me that these are payments that were missed, but I don't know how much they actually owed us. I don't know how much they owed us, but
Does anybody know?
I'm not sure. She may know, but they have, she's given me payments that she has said that these are payments that are making up for what they did pay us 20 and 20.
All right. And then the franchise fees, by way of explanation to the audience, is the 5% fee charged on Center Point, well, Summit now, gas is charged on energy, it's charged to Southern Link and Woodruff, and as well as AT&T.
Yes.
So it's a tax that our customers pay. And to the extent the customers are bootlegging, do we get franchise fees off of that?
I don't know what.
They bootleg.
No.
Explain bootleg for some of us don't know.
They bootleg.
Yes, sir, explain it for us.
These houses we're seeing as we're tearing houses down that got power from the pole to the house. And then they got little orange cords running into the meter box with no meter. and they're getting light service in those houses. Those who we find that put a bar across where they have no meter for water, they put a bar across there to get water from one side to the other without paying for it. And they do something similar to that gas. We got plenty of that going on. We probably need to find some way to enforce, because we're not getting any money. The power company is losing money, and they're charging us more to accommodate the loss as opposed to doing something about the loss.
Now,
I've seen the power company come, and they should have witnessed what I saw and do nothing about it. Now, I don't know what their process is, but
with
we
some
got
of the
some.
franchise fees have increased, particularly the Entergy and the center, in the, what's the gas, Summit, but that's probably because they raised their rates.
Oh, yeah, some raised
Yeah.
out the roof.
But we don't get anything off the cell phone. We
Yeah,
only get
so-
the franchise fee off of landline.
Landline, nothing on cell
Nothing.
phone.
Yeah, so the AT&T, yeah, that's just, they steadily decrease.
Yeah. Now you got fines and forfeitures. It's 95,000. Is that the city's small percentage off of tickets?
Yeah,
So this money is general fund money that we get to use for general fund.
yes.
Yeah, but the total collected might have been 500,000 or 600,000, and we got 95.
Yeah, that she splits it up between the state, county, whatever, this is
Yeah.
our shit.
And I say that to say that our police department does work,
Oh, yeah.
funds the county jail, funds the state, funds circuit judge salaries, and the city gets $95,000
Yeah.
out of this $1 million we spending for the police department.
Now, the police department, I mean, the officers, they do arrest people. Now, I don't know what happens in the court, but the police.
I understand, our police department is working,
Yeah.
it's functioning.
Yeah.
Very-
Now, I heard the judge, and I take nothing away from the judge or his presentation, or the lady that's doing the county docket. But the county docket just is not much, because our county deputies are not writing tickets. It's just not happening. This court is run off what our police officers do. And if y'all need data on that, I can get it for you. I wouldn't say it if I didn't know it. Local permits and fees. Our code enforcement department has been assisting the clerk's office, and they've been doing, I think, a really good job of getting those monies collected as occupational licenses. The clerk has a really good program. If you work for the city, you need to have at least an occupational license with the city. And then sort these permits and stuff for folks doing things. Now, street cuts, I see is blank, and we gotta do a better job of collecting on street cuts. Because a bunch of these street cuts we got are not done by us, they've been done by other utilities, like so gas coming up. And they're supposed to pay a permit fee, which is also a deposit for them to fix it or for us to fix it. And we gotta do that on that part. Now, sanitation revenue, we're showing 1.3 million, but I think the water department was 1.5 million, so we need to check out numbers on that.
Well, I mean, that's just the projection of what it should be. Everything, it's for 2024, so hopefully they will pay us in 2024. The money that they collect and give to us, so that's just a projection of what we should get.
Yeah.
From the current, bill.
Okay. All right, and then police accident report, fingerprints, $3,500. Animal shelter, this is.
But the animal shelter was something that, I put that in at 25,000 and I put there the animal control department at 25,000. So they really offset each other. When Mayor Smith was here, he was suggesting he wanted to put $25,000 in appropriations for an animal shelter, and he said that he could get $25,000 in donations or whatever for it. So that's why I have the $25,000 there.
Okay. All right, you also have a category called donations that's separate from the animal shelter.
Yes.
Okay.
Those primarily was supposed to come from the no, the what Yeah, the port authority.
Okay, all right. Now, that concludes the general fund revenue, right?
Yeah.
All right, does anybody have any questions? Either based on what I've asked or just based on what the revenue projections done by our treasurer are?
Bottom line, $5,480,000.
And,
Yes, sir.
and the transfer from the landfill on the 2 cent sales tax. I can't count it as revenue in two places. So that money goes to the Bank of the Ozarks
Okay,
on the 2 cent sales tax. They take the money out for the principal payment and interest payment on the bond, then they send the rest of it to us.
but I mean, that's
So that's
$5,400,000.
where the transfer from the,
That's what we're gonna get.
with that and the transfer from the Bank of the Ozarks, that's gonna be.
Can you tell us what page you're looking at, Trish?
I sent them a report just of the general fund. And I have page 10.
Page 10 at the top right.
Yeah,
Okay, in the packet, that's gonna be page 11.
okay, I don't know.
I'm telling you.
So the page I'm looking at, it shows, transfer landfill debt service, you see under other financing services, it say general revenues transfers in. That transfer landfill debt service, that's an additional $2.5 million that we get. But I can't count it as income because it's counted as income in the landfill debt service. So that's why I always say we have about $8 million.
So that the 2.481,
Yeah.
you said about 2.5, that's on. Okay, I'll make sure I'm looking at the same thing. So page 11, in the middle of the page, is where you're under other finance service.
That's the debt.
And the $15,000 is what we get from the housing authority, but they pay us. It varies, but that's what we call payments in lieu of taxes.
So they don't pay property taxes, they just bill it
Yes,
to us each year.
yes.
And this water department contribution is what in years when the water
Yeah.
company was solvent. We took 6,000 a month from West Helena, 4,000 a month from Helena, roughly.
It was about 10 from one and 5 from the other. I'm thinking it's about 10 from West Helena. One was way more than.
At 128, $10,000 a month. It's about 11, but whatever it was.
Mm.
There was an amount from each one, was treated like a
Yeah.
franchise fee.
Yeah.
And that was to keep the city from being seen as invading the water company revenues for city purposes. We'll get the $120,000 a year, and that'd be all of the money the city took from the water department. But they haven't been paying this lately because that revenues were inadequate.
But I throw it in there just hoping that they don't.
Right. All right. Any questions based on the revenue? All right. I'm going back to page 3 of the packet. And so the expenditures, Mr. City Treasurer, as are outlined here, this is based on the actual expenditures that we had for
Yeah.
2023.
Yeah, and then I kind of project them out, like I may have 9 months worth of expenditures for when I start in September. So I may have August expenditures through August and I project them out throughout the rest of the year. And then as I continue to work on the budget, I may start projecting from September sometimes. So the amount varies, but I try to capture, in some instances, a lot of expenses. You have this one large payment, some of them are quarterly. And so I try to make sure I capture that in most instances. So for the most part, they are 22,000 expenditures that I project out. on a 12-month basis.
Yes, sir. Anybody got any questions about any of those expenditures?
Your expenditures, you base it on last year's.
Yeah, the previous year. And then sometimes I know that, I got the heads up on something that's coming through, and so I add it to it sometimes. So yeah, I go through each line item and make sure if I think it's reasonable or not, because sometimes I know we've had difficulties paying some bills.
Right.
And so the expenditure may not show up in the software.
You got emergency
Yeah,
repairs.
yeah, yeah.
You got to.
Yes, I have to, yeah.
Allow for that.
Yes, yes, sir.
What's the difference between
Yes.
salaries, contract labor, and salaries other? What is that?
Admin.
What page? No.
Page 3.
Okay, so the salaries. You got salaries administrative, of course, that's gonna be the payroll, the clerks. The administrative assistant for the city attorney. Purchasing clerk. The human resources officer, the human resources person. Those are gonna be administrative salaries.
The contract is gonna probably be,
I'm just, she said, what's the difference between the salaries and the
Oh, okay.
contract people and the salaries of them?
yes, sir.
So the salary administrative are gonna be those people like the human resources person, the purchasing clerk.
It's on page 12, we look at it.
Page 3.
They're right.
Page 3. I mean, I'm just asking. That it probably is outlining one. Yes.
And so, of course, you see the salaries of elected officials. The salaries of other are it's at the planning commission.
Yep.
Yeah, so those are for the planning commission. Contract labor is, we have a plumbing inspector, electrical inspector. We have a custodian that's not payroll. So we see contract labor. And it may be other things that pop up. Contracts that the mayor may have someone do. If he hires somebody, contracts someone to come cut around City Hall or plant some flowers or things like that are going out. So those are things that the city needs to do, but doesn't necessarily have someone on payroll to do it, but he'll contract with someone else. So just like I said about the custodian, she's not on payroll, but pay for the bill. And we have the plumbing inspector, and we have the electrical inspector, but they're not on city payroll.
Administrative department. I mean, what is that look like?
Sometimes the administrative assistant, city attorney's office, she may have to stay over sometimes. She's providing information on a lawsuit. Sometimes she has to stay over. Because of things that she's doing. We don't really, the clerks don't stay over often. it may be in a case where they may have to. So most of the overtime you see in the administrative department is gonna be in the city attorney. When they have to respond to lawsuits. Now and I'll double check that number. Cause I don't think it was that high, actually. I think it's hard for me to pick up my reports and my software in here because of the Wi-Fi. So I don't think it was that high. So that may just be, yeah. Yeah, so I think I have to double check that. I don't think it was anywhere close to $10,000. Yeah, it was about $1,500, $2,000. I need to double check that. I'm glad you brought that up.
I know we haven't quite gotten there yet, but on page 4, can we skip over it for just a hot minute? I'm gonna
Okay.
ask a question.
Page 4.
On page 4. So I know that we ended up saving some money. Once the board of the chief of staff reported that we found a line that nobody was even using, and so we stopped using that as far as the phone services and all that. So I see that for our telephone service, we budgeted $38,000. So is that cell phones? Or is that cell phone landlines? Is that, what is that a reflection?
This, I can't find. Oh, okay, that's for admin, that's for admin, that's just us, that's just the phone lines that we use here. And the modems. And things like that, yeah, the Wi-Fi. And it's primarily in this bill. The water department has a separate budget. And so, I don't know what that is off the top of my head. I think I have it here. But that 38,000 that you're looking at, that's just for, that's for City Hall primarily.
Well, we can cut it. And as other folks say, we can use.
We talked about overtime tonight. We talked about overtime tonight. At the landfill. How much overtime are they getting out there at the landfill?
Quite a bit.
Yeah, I think
Well,
it's double what we were budgeted.
What the work is.
Yeah, well, it's double what was budgeted. I think it's pretty much in line with what they did last year.
In line with what they did last
Yes,
year.
yes,
that's
sir.
what you're saying.
Yes. But we initially budgeted for $10,000 last year. And like I said, it was the same rationale. Well, you were on the council. So same rationale was with them in street and sanitation, gave them $10,000 in the budget. So when they got close to the 10, they needed to come back into the city council and say, hey, we need.
So you're allocating 20,000.
Yeah, because that's what they've been the last couple of years. That's what they've been getting
Sort of help out there.
you can ask you mean last year, this year? About the,
Absolutely. Try to help, try to equipment.
Only for the, yeah.
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 And Ms. Miller, was that? You had any more?
No.
Do we know,
Like you can cut, you got my number and you can email me or whatever. Yes. Yes,
do we know the specifics of the overtime? Where it's going, how it's,
Oh, wait.
for the landfill?
Oh, Mr. Edmund, we all agreed that we'll talk about that when we get to the landfill. We talk about police, code and.
Of course, but I can tell them real quickly, it's going to the people that work at the landfill.
Do I?
It's going to the people that work at the landfill.
Oh,
Bruce Simpson, Tammy Simpson, Carl Steiger, Sammy Davis, Frank Miller.
we have less employees.
You got 5 people out there.
Five. How many did we have the year before?
I don't know, probably 6 or 7. You're gonna need about 10 really, but we have over 5 right now.
Short of numbers is what
We're short of people and the equipment is constantly failing.
yeah, because it broke down all the time.
So they really can't do a whole lot with their hands out there. So until we get,
Have you got that in the budget?
I don't have the landfill budget. I might have it on here.
yes, sir. So,
I mean, that's a moneymaker for us, is the landfill, it should be.
I don't know about money maker, but it'll generate some revenue, yes, sir.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Generate some revenue.
It'll generate some revenue. But if we don't keep it open, it's gonna cost us money. So one of the things is we need to keep it open. But to get back to tonight, we're gonna come back, we'll have a full discussion of the landfill on landfill night. We're dealing with police, code enforcement, and court.
Next meeting.
I don't remember.
I think so. Yeah,
Okay.
that's landfill, I know. But I think this one we have, I put $60,000. And we can talk about it if y'all want to reduce it, but I'm looking at what's been trending, and so,
You're looking at the trend.
yeah, and so.
So the question, and what I was trying to do, and I think y'all done a good job of, get you all to discuss revenue and expenses, so people have a full understanding of what we're dealing with.
You can't spend what you don't have. You got to have the income and you got
Yes,
to
sir.
be able to balance them out. I think.
Yes, sir.
Quick question. So is, animal control going to be under code enforcement?
Animal control gonna be wherever you all said put them, but she was hired under code enforcement by the former administration. And this administration been reluctant to move her or deal with that without something else. If you understand what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
so like, that's a big question because, I think we've kind of kicked this around a lot, regarding her position, her responsibilities. What are we gonna do about the animal shelter? Are we gonna sign the contract that Ms. Galloway gave us? I mean, all of this is still on the table, so are we going to discuss that tonight, or are we gonna wait on that, or what are we gonna do?
Well, my position in code, there's nothing in the budget for it.
I'm sorry.
In my position on the code, there's just for 3 code enforcement officers. We have those.
I think she budgeted right now.
Yeah, and,
She's in under code enforcement.
yeah, because like you said, that's what she was hired. That's how they started payroll out of code enforcement. So I just continued to place it.
And what appears to me, full disclosure, she was hired as code enforcement officer because the code enforcement officer base pay was the 32,000. That's what the mayor wanted to pay her at that time. So he never really intended for her to be code enforcement. He wanted her to be animal control. But her pay would have been minimum wage had he hired as animal control, if you understand what I'm saying. She would have been at $22,800. But instead he hired her as code enforcement and told her to go do animal control. So she could be paid 32,000. And so that's what I'm saying why the mayor didn't touch it. If he'd reversed all of that, we'd had a whole different fight on his hand with that part of it. But, and I'm not concerned necessarily about her current salary. She needs to be under the street department, supervised by the street supervisor and all of that. And we didn't put her under the street supervisor because initially there was a lot of friction that wouldn't have been healthy for either her or the street supervisor. So she was kind of technically supervised by me and the mayor technically. And kind of technically didn't add no supervisor, really. And so she's been working under code enforcement, but she's kind of been just out here on her own in a large sense. And we need to deal with that, whether we deal with it tonight on code enforcement night, or we deal with it as some part of administration or street department. I think she should go under the street department. And we should probably deal with her in the street department. And we should decide whether we're gonna be animal rescue, animal control. And that leads you to the answers to the rest of your question. In terms of how you're gonna treat the animals in Helena-West that we deal with.
Well, the first question is, are we gonna have a shelter? If we don't have a shelter, I don't see the need for animal control at all, because we're not actively.
The house,
Even
even temporary.
Or I would say, don't need it at all, or it should be a part-time position if you're not, actively taking dogs off the street and having a house. So. But the first question is, are we gonna have a shelter? And I guess Nick, that'll be answered about can we afford it and all that.
Well, secondarily, there's another thing that could be done. That is, a nonprofit can be set up by the group of people who are concerned about that. The city could pay that nonprofit a set fee per year. This is what we budget. You raise what you want to raise above that and do what you see is best.
I tried not to get in that discussion when they were here, but they started off with the presumption that we were in an animal rescue posture. And they
Right.
wanted to assist us in doing all of these things that we don't really do. But what we can do is we can contract with them the same way we contracted with the Boys and Girls Club or somebody else, and they can do all of those things they want to do. And
Right.
maybe, it could be less than the salary of an animal control officer.
And the employee can go to them.
Right.
And
There's
then,
some ways to address it.
and then you got a set number, whatever your set number is.
Yeah.
If it's 30,000, if it's 60, whatever the number is, and I'm just throwing numbers out, but that's what you pay. And then animal control is handled by somebody else, and they deal with how they choose.
Well, we done where we want to be.
But that's not necessarily to be resolved tonight.
No,
I say
no.
we'll do it on street department night, I guess. I hope we've been helpful. One question before we go, is it helpful when you get these packets with these numbers and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
We adjourn if we will.
All right. All right.